Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye calls on Japan to resolve its past wrongdoings against Korea. She also expresses a willingness to hold an inter-Korean summit if certain conditions are met. Lawmakers give themselves another month to decide on a new-look electoral map for next spring's general elections. Rival parties are having a tough time narrowing their differences. Plus, the IMF urges the US Federal Reserve to take a more cautious approach before hiking interest rates for the first time in nearly a decade. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, November 13th, here in Seoul. You're tuned in to our midday newscast on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye has once again called for the swift resolution of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. The Korean leader made the remarks in a joint written interview with 8 members of the Organization of Asia-Pacific News Agencies ahead of a 10-day tour that will take her to Turkey, the Philippines, and Malaysia. Our Hwang Sang-hee breaks down what the president had to say.
On Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women, President Park called for a resolution that can heal the wounds of the past. She expressed hope for concrete progress on the issue, saying Japan is going against international sentiment by dragging the issue out without admitting its wrongdoing. President Park and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe agreed to speed up negotiations on the so-called comfort women issue at their first face-to-face summit in Seoul earlier this month. With both leaders attending a string of multilateral summits starting this weekend, President Park's 10-day tour could provide her with an opportunity to continue talks with Abe. On inter-Korean relations, President Park said she is open to talks at the highest level. This under the condition that there is progress in regards to North Korea's denuclearization and inter-Korean ties. For now, she said the Koreas must work on building trust step by step. On the upcoming G20, APEC, and ASEAN Plus 3 summits, President Park said the leaders will focus on securing inclusive and continued growth. She said South Korea will actively take part in discussions on the Korea-Japan-China Free Trade Agreement and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Deal at the APEC summit. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's rival political camps have failed to reach a deal on redrawing the country's electoral map ahead of next year's general elections. They are giving themselves another month to try and narrow their differences. Park Ji-won has more.
According to the National Assembly Act, redistricting constituency boundaries should be completed 5 months before elections. Considering the general elections will be held on April 13, 2016, the redistricting plan should have been agreed by Friday. However, despite a series of bipartisan negotiations this week, the rival parties have yet to reach a compromise. Instead, representatives of each party have agreed to discuss the matter for another month in the hope they can narrow their differences by mid-December. The redrawing has become an urgent political matter as the Constitutional Court ruled last year that the electoral map should be redrawn to realize a more fair representation of population in each district. To make it more equal, sparsely populated rural areas will lose some constituencies, while more densely populated areas will get more. As you'd expect, ruling and main opposition party lawmakers representing rural areas are adamantly against the change. On top of this, progress has been held up by the sharply different views of each party. The ruling Saenuri Party wants to increase the number of local constituencies. It proposes doing so by cutting the current 54 proportional seats to minimize cuts to the number of rural constituencies. But the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy wants to maintain the number of seats given to proportional representation members. The Liberal Party also wants to introduce region-based proportional representation members who are chosen based on the total number of votes each party gets in each region. The negotiations should be completed by the end of next month at the latest. If not, all current constituencies will be invalidated. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, all eyes and ears are on the U.S. Federal Reserve as it deliberates on whether to raise rates for the first time in more than 9 years. More people are offering their opinion as the big meeting approaches in mid-December, but Fed Chief Janet Yellen is keeping her stance to herself. Son Jung-in reports.
The International Monetary Fund has suggested the U.S. Federal Reserve take a more cautious approach before deciding to raise interest rates. In a report, the IMF said the Federal Open Market Committee should delay a rate hike until they see clear signs of inflation rising toward its 2% target. Citing prolonged global financial uncertainties, the report expressed concerns a rate increase could cause financial volatility and abrupt changes in emerging market capital flows. Fed Chair Janet Yellen, who has been calling for a gradual increase, showed a rather neutral stance this time. Speaking at a Fed board conference in Washington on Thursday, Yellen did not address the current policy outlook. She only stressed that policymakers must be mindful of the effects that post-crisis financial regulations can have on the global economy.
It's crucial to understand the effect of regulations and possible changes in financial intermediation on monetary policy implementation and transmission.
But some senior Fed officials are shifting toward possible liftoff. Regional Fed Presidents James Bullard and Jeffrey Lacker said the central bank no longer needed to keep rates near zero as U.S. inflation was near the Fed's goal. Bullard predicted a strong labor market with the unemployment rate dropping to the 4% range. Other global economists are growing more confident the Fed will start upping the rate next month. A poll by the Wall Street Journal found that more than 90% of economists believe a hike will be announced at the Fed's December policy meeting. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, with the aim of boosting their presence in the highly lucrative duty-free sector, a handful of Korean conglomerates will go head-to-head to be granted a license to sell. The Korea Customs Service will carry out the final review over the next couple of days before announcing their decision on Saturday. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Who will it be? Korea's customs agency says it will announce the recipients of duty-free operating licenses on Saturday after a strict closed-door evaluation over the next 2 days. 4 conglomerates, Shinsegae, Doosan Group, SK Group, and Lotte Group, are vying to be granted licenses to operate duty-free stores in 3 locations in Seoul, set to expire this year. 2 companies, retail giant Shinsegae and fashion group Hyungji, are competing for 1 location in Korea's southern port city of Busan. On the first day, the panel will review documents submitted by the companies before presentations by the competitors the following day. The companies will be assessed on various factors such as management capabilities, financial soundness, and contribution to society. There has been intense competition for duty-free licenses in Korea as the business has become a huge source of profit. In 2014, 6 duty-free stores in Seoul posted a combined sales of nearly $4 billion. And the competitors are all eager to get in on the action.
서비스업의 삼선전자가 되도록 노력하겠습니다.
동대문이 한국 관광의 구심점이 될 만한 그런 면세점이 있느냐? 없습니다.
서울 관광객 2천만 시대를 만들어가는 데 일조하겠습니다.
세계적인 패션의 컨텐츠는 대한민국의 저희가 최고입니다.
However, some critics say the heated competition raises eyebrows as it could result in unrealistic pledges and targets, insisting that companies should be more focused on providing differentiated strategies for global competitiveness. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, it has emerged that Choi Ryong-hae, a top aide to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, may be related to the ruling Kim family. South Korean news outlet YTN reported on Friday, quoting a high-ranking North Korean defector, that Choi is the father-in-law to Kim Jong-un's younger sister, Kim Yo-jong. There was speculation that Choi was the victim of a purge by Kim, given his recent disappearance from public view, but according to reports Thursday, He hasn't been purged as such, but he has been sent to the North's top school for re-education. Reports on Kim Yo-jong's marriage with Che's second son have been circulating since early this year, but how valid these reports had actually been denied by South Korean government sources. The US government has admitted to flying 2 strategic bombers close to China's reclaimed islands in the South China Sea. The Pentagon says the B-52s were contacted by Chinese air traffic control but continued with their missions as directed. Connie Kim reports.
In a move that could further inflame tension between Washington and Beijing, it has emerged the Pentagon flew 2 B-52 bombers near China's artificial islands in the South China Sea earlier this week. Pentagon spokesman Bill Urban said Thursday that the B-52s were on a routine mission in the South China Sea, taking off from and returning to Guam, but did not go within 12 nautical miles of the islands. 12 nautical miles around a territory is internationally recognized as sovereign territory, but the U.S. does not recognize China's claim to the artificial islands. Tension escalated late last month after an American destroyer challenged territorial limits around one of China's man-made islands in the Spratlys. The Spratlys are a disputed group of more than 750 reefs, islets, atolls, cays, and islands claimed by China and 4 other countries, including Vietnam and the Philippines. The U.S. says the patrols are within its rights under freedom of navigation. But Beijing has so far held firm to its stance, saying it'll never allow any country to violate its territorial waters and airspace in the area. The latest patrol comes days before U.S. President Barack Obama's trip to Manila for the APEC summit. There, Obama is expected to voice Washington's commitment to freedom of navigation and overflight in the area. Chinese President Xi Jinping will also attend the APEC talks. The White House says no decision has been made on whether to put the South China Sea issue on the formal agenda. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Over 40 people have been killed and more than 180 injured after a double suicide bombing in South Beirut. Lebanon's worst terrorist attack this year targeted a crowded Shia majority neighborhood in the city. The Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for the bombing. The Lebanese government says the death toll is expected to rise further given the severity of the attack. Lebanon's Prime Minister has condemned the bombing as cowardly. The country has declared Friday as a day of national mourning. Labour unions will stage a massive rally against the government's labour policies on Saturday in central Seoul. The government says it will take any illegal actions very seriously and deal with any cases accordingly. Around 100,000 people from more than 50 labour unions, including the Korea Confederation of Trade Unions, are expected to attend. While the protest is taking place, literature exams and interviews for prospective high school graduates will take place at 12 universities around the capital, adding to the congestion. Now, if you're driving through the centre of Seoul on Saturday, please keep in mind that there may be some road closures due to the protest. The Milan Expo attracted some 20 million visitors from around the world during its roughly 5-month run. Korea had a pavilion there, and the country's signature dishes proved popular with visitors. So much so, in fact, that experts believe the long-term benefits, economic benefits for Korea, could run into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Oh Soo-young has his report.
Italians are known for their hearty dishes with plenty of olive oil, tomatoes and mixed herbs. But in Milan, the country's bustling fashion capital, more and more people are enjoying Korean cuisine. From May to October, Korea showcased its signature dishes at this year's Milan Expo and was among the 145 countries that participated under the theme, Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life. During the 6-month exposition, the Korea Pavilion welcomed roughly 2.3 million guests, eager to explore Korean gastronomy. And around 190,000 have visited the restaurant inside the pavilion to taste the country's best dishes such as bibimbap, a spicy mix of rice, meat and vegetables, and japchae, stir-fried sweet potato noodles with strips of lean meat and vegetables flavored with soy sauce.
I chose to try japchae because it's similar to pasta. I like it because the flavor isn't strong, but it's slightly spicy.
The restaurant has generated sales revenue of over $3.7 million. And industry experts say the Korea Pavilion will continue to make substantial economic impact in the next 10 years, worth over $430 million.
The economic benefits will amount to around $440 million, but the cultural impact of tourism, the arts, tradition, and history will be much more substantial.
In fact, the Milan Expo has not only attracted food lovers, it's boosted Korea's image. After dropping by the pavilion, the number of people expressing interest in purchasing Korean products doubled to 75%, while those interested in visiting Korea also doubled to 77%. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Friday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Goodbye.